التغيير ليس مستغربا.
لا استقبل
اللي عم بصير 7 أيار بشكل آخر.
Good afternoon on this Wednesday, May 7th. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Parliament fails yet again for a third week in a row to elect a new president over differences between March 8 and 14 alliances. The Maronite Bishops' Council lament lawmakers' ongoing failure to elect a president, voicing their concern over the possibility of a vacuum in Lebanon's top post. And the operation to evacuate fighters and civilians from the last stronghold in the Syrian city of Homs goes underway. Parliament failed yet again for the third week in a row to elect a new president over differences between the March 8 and 14 alliances and amid warnings of a possible vacuum at the Babda Palace, more than 2 weeks before the expiry of President Michel Sleiman's tenure. Speaker Nabih Berri set May 15th as a new round of voting after the March 8 lawmakers again boycotted the elections. March 8 MPs and mainly members of MP Michel Aoun's Change and Reform bloc stressed to reporters outside of Parliament that the elections would be held only if they became serious. Aoun has repeatedly said that he would not announce his candidacy if there was no consensus on him. Lawmaker Alain Aoun denied that March 8 was obstructing the elections and accused March 14 of hindering the election process by holding on to the candidacy of Lebanese Forces Chief Samir Jaja, who had no chance of success. The Maronite Bishops' Council is lamenting lawmakers' ongoing failure to elect a president, voicing their concern over the possibility of a vacuum in Lebanon's top post. They said after their monthly meeting, chaired by Patriarch Bshara Rai, the MP's remarks on vacuum is a cause for concern and a sign of political inaptitude. They added that the new president should be up to the local and regional challenges. Moreover, they hope that Parliament will continue to function on a regular basis and not just only convene for the sake of electing a president. This comes after Parliament failed for the third week in a row to elect a new president over differences between both alliances more than 2 weeks before the expiry of President Michel Sleiman's tenure. Kataeb Party leader Amin Jmail and Free Patriotic Movement chief Michel Aoun have agreed on the importance of holding the presidential elections on May 25th. Following talks with Aoun at his residence in Rabie, Jmail said, quote, "We agreed on the importance of exerting all efforts to hold the polls as soon as possible." The former head of state and a member of the March 14 coalition described the presidency as the symbol of the nation. He also said that politicians had good intentions to facilitate the voting process. He spoke after Jmail, saying he insisted that the elections be held in the coming weeks and before May 21st. Jmail met with Lebanese Forces Chief Samir Jaja, the March 14th Alliance only candidate for the country's top Christian post, right beforehand. The head of the emergency unit at Beirut's Hotel Dieu Hospital, Antoine Zourbi, is denying media reports that a case of the Middle East respiratory syndrome known as MERS, a coronavirus, has been recorded at the hospital. No cases of the coronavirus were recorded at the hospital, he said to Voice of Lebanon Radio, reporting that a Saudi was taken to Hotel Dieu in Ashrafiyeh for suffering from the MERS coronavirus. Health Minister Wael Abu Faoud stepped in and confirmed to Al Jadid TV that there are no confirmed cases of the virus at the Hotel Dieu hospital. The Middle East respiratory syndrome is considered a deadlier but less transmissible cousin of the SARS virus that erupted in Asia in 2003 and infected over 8,000 people, 9% of whom died. A man has died in Jordan after being infected with the MERS virus, media reports say, in the kingdom's second fatality from the disease this year and fourth since 2012. Speaker Nabih Berri is calling for a parliamentary session to discuss the wage scale draft law after its amendment by a ministerial legislative committee. The committee, which was formed a few weeks ago after lawmakers failed to agree on the raise, handed Berri the amended version of the wage scale. The Syndicate Coordination Committee, a coalition of private and public school teachers and public sector employees, says it will only accept a 121% wage hike as initially approved by former Prime Minister Najib Miati's government back in 2012. But the committee reduced the total funding from $1.9 billion to $1.2. The committee also proposed raising the value-added tax from 10 to 11% on certain services and customs by 5% on some items. The SEC has warned that it would continue to hold street protests if Parliament failed to approve the pay hike in its initial form. An operation to evacuate fighters and civilians from rebel-held areas of the Syrian city of Homs started, according to a rebel negotiator on the ground. Injured people who have been trapped in the old city and surrounding areas for nearly 2 years under a tight government siege are to be the first to leave. Under the deal negotiated with assistance of Iran's ambassador to Damascus, the group will be taken to an opposition-held area in the north of Homs province, according to a rebel negotiator. Fighters will be allowed to withdraw with light weapons, and 1 rocket launcher will be permitted on every bus used for the evacuation. The deal will be guaranteed by the United Nations and Iran. It is reached as part of an exchange for an unknown number of hostages being held by rebels in the northern city of Aleppo. And under the agreement, opposition fighters will also allow aid into 2 Shia majority towns in the same province, Nubul and Zahra, which are under rebel siege. Coming up next, military and law enforcement experts from the U.S. and the UK have been sent to Nigeria to help find nearly 300 girls and women abducted by Boko Haram. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Future TV. Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman denounced as a fifth column thousands of Arab Israelis who joined a demonstration calling for the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Around 10,000 protesters, many waving Palestinian flags, joined a rally in northern Israel to remember 530 villages from which some 760,000 people fled or were expelled following the creation of the Jewish state in 1948. The rally took place as Israel marked its 66th Independence Day, with Lieberman accusing demonstrators of being traitors. But he acknowledged that those who joined the Nakba demonstration were only a minority among Israel's Arab minority, who make up just over a fifth of the overall population of 8.2 million. At the rally, which took place in a small village in northern Israel, the protester marched under the slogan, "Your Independence Day is our Nakba." This is the Arabic word for catastrophe. Military and law enforcement experts from the United States and the United Kingdom have been sent to Nigeria to help find nearly 300 girls and women abducted by Boko Haram. 3 weeks have passed since the kidnapping of nearly 300 schoolgirls from a secondary school, and there have been concerns about their fate. More developments in this report.
Nearly 300 schoolgirls have been kidnapped since April the 14th from a secondary school in the northeastern village of Chibok by suspected Boko Haram gunmen who stormed into the school, packing the girls onto armed trucks and disappearing into a remote area. There have been concerns about their fate after Boko Haram chief Abu Bakr Shiko claimed responsibility in a video, saying his group was holding the schoolgirls as slaves and threatening to sell them in the market. He said that girls as young as 9 years old would be sold for marriage, stating that God has commanded me to sell. He also warned that his group planned to attack more schools and abduct more girls. U.S. President Barack Obama described the kidnapping of the girls as heartbreaking and outrageous. Soon after, residents said the group has seized 8 more girls aged between 12 and 15, again in the embattled Northeast.
We've already sent in a team to Nigeria. They've accepted our help, a combination of military, law enforcement, and other agencies who are going in, trying to identify where in fact these girls might be and to provide them help. Obviously it's a heartbreaking situation, outrageous situation. You've got one of the worst regional or local terrorist organizations in Boko Haram in Nigeria. They've been killing people ruthlessly for many years now, and we've already been seeking greater cooperation with the Nigerians. This may be the event that helps to mobilize the entire international community to finally do something against this horrendous organization that's perpetrated such a terrible crime.
Meanwhile, demonstrators believe that President Jonathan's government has not done enough to rescue their loved ones, and a campaign called Bring Back Our Girls is being held outside the Nigerian embassy in Washington, demanding that the Nigerian president should take action to go after these terrorists and bring these girls home. The abduction of these schoolgirls has sparked international outrage and mounting demands for Nigeria to spare no effort to find and free the girls before they can be sold into slavery or otherwise harmed. Nigeria's police have said more than 300 girls were abducted. Of that number, 276 remain in captivity and 53 managed to escape. However, none have been rescued by military forces.
Tens of thousands of South Africans head to the polls to vote in the country's fifth democratic election since the end of the apartheid. Electoral officials said that most polling stations across the country opened on time in a general election that is expected to see the African National Congress Party remain power. Around 29 parties featuring on the national ballot will jostle for the votes of some 25 million South Africans registered to participate in the polls. The elections mark 20 years since South Africa's first democratic election, following almost 5 decades of apartheid rule. Arriving just after 6 a.m. this morning to vote at the Orange High School in the township Inanda on the outskirts of Durban, where Nelson Mandela himself cast his ballot in 1994, Shandu Topsili said she was nervous to vote. About 29 parties featuring on the national ballot will vie for the votes of 25 million South Africans registered to participate. Thailand's constitutional court has ordered Yingluck Shinawatra to step down as prime minister after finding her guilty of abusing her power. The court ruled that Shinawatra had abused her authority by transferring a senior civil servant in 2011 to another position. It said the transfer was carried out with a hidden agenda to benefit her politically powerful family. The court also ruled that 9 members of her cabinet were complicit in the abuse. Yingluck's supporters accused the courts of toppling her through unfair use of the legal system after 6 months of anti-government protest failed to unseat her. The ruling marks the latest twist in Thailand's long-running political crisis. Yingluck supporters have vowed to hold a major rally on Saturday, which many fear could spark violence. She has also been charged of anti-corruption officials with neglect of duty and connection with the costly rice subsidy scheme that critics say fomented rampant corruption. Western powers launched a desperate last-gasp drive for a diplomatic solution to stop Ukraine sliding into civil war as fighting spread closer to the Russian border. The head of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Swiss President Didier Burkhalter, was to meet Russian leader Vladimir Putin after Moscow quashed a German-led plan for new peace talks. And Britain's Foreign Secretary William Hague held talks in Kiev as the Western-backed government there stepped up its military offensive to seize back a string of eastern towns and cities under the control of pro-Russian gunmen. On the ground, local media reported that Ukrainian security forces had liberated the town hall in the port city of Mariupol near the Russian border. Explosions and gunfire were also heard overnight in the flashpoint eastern town of Slavyansk, as the military advanced on rebel-held positions in the center of what has become a hotbed of separatist activity. The Obama administration released an updated report on how to change climate and how it has touched every corner of the country, from oyster growers in Washington state to maple syrup producers in Vermont, and said that urgent action is needed. In a video released by the White House, U.S. President Barack Obama's science advisor, Dr. John Holdren, called the assessment the most comprehensive and authoritative account ever about how climate has been changing in the United States and what can be done about it.
Confirm that climate change is not a distant threat. It is affecting the American people already. On the whole, summers are longer and hotter, with longer periods of extended heat. Wildfires start earlier in the spring and continue later into the fall. Rain comes down in heavier downpours. People are experiencing changes in the length and severity of seasonal allergies, and climate disruptions to water resources and agriculture have been increasing. Scientists who study climate change confirm that these phenomena are consistent with the ongoing changes in global climate, which we know with very high confidence are being caused mainly by the increase of atmospheric carbon dioxide and other heat-trapping gases released by human activities.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Let me remind you of our top stories. Parliament fails yet again for the 3rd week in a row to elect a new president over differences between the March 8 and 14 alliances. The Maronite Bishops' Council lament lawmakers' ongoing failure to elect a president, voicing their concern over the possibility of vacuum in Lebanon's top post. An operation to evacuate fighters and civilians from their last stronghold in the Syrian city of Homs is underway. This wraps up your headlines on this Wednesday, live from Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you a good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow for what's making headlines. Take care.
الغياب ليس مستغربا. لا
اللي عم بصير 7 اياد بشكل اخر.